It's been a weird year for video games, coming off the back of 2023, which personally was one of the greatest year of video game releases I've ever seen. This year, no doubt, has had major hits still. We've had the incredible Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the explosion that was Helldivers 2, a fitting end to a 10-year saga in Destiny, and a new one beginning essentially in the first MMO World of Warcraft. But it's been marred in the constant barrage of layoffs and underlying consistency in live service failures, trying to chase a trend that was popular when they were conceived, but now it's just leading to failures. It's just been ups and downs. But, ladies and gentlemen, video games are back. Well, they never really left, but I am energized, I'm rejuvenated, I am feeling good. I'm so excited to talk about these two video games that could have been more opposed in tone if they tried, and yet they still give off that same feeling. Those two games are Astrobot and Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. I've rolled credits on both, and I was thinking to myself, what is it? What's making me feel so energized, so enthusiastic to talk about both of these video games? I like a lot of games, but what is it that just radiates positive feelings? And honestly, the answer I got is that they know what they are, and they double down on that. They know who they're for, and they're confident in their own identity. Video game development life cycles are so long now that when a game often fails, it's because they were chasing something that was once popular at the time that they were conceived, that by the time that it actually ships, the appetite for it is no longer really there. These two games also encompass next gen in very different ways, because even 4 years into this generation of consoles, it still doesn't feel like it's properly got going yet. Astrobot is a showcase of next generation hardware. What can happen when the DualSense is properly utilized? The way they use audio, the sandbox, and on the other hand, Space Marine 2 is like the Xbox 360 game juiced up on a next generation console. It's the next generation version of that. I want to start on Astrobot, and I thought about making two separate videos on both of these games. But the truth is, what is there to be said about Astrobot that hasn't already been said? It is just a sheer delight to play. The thing is, there's the quote out there that money cannot buy happiness, and it's a quote that you can agree with, you can disagree with. But one thing that I will say is that it's becoming exceedingly rare where you can put money down on something and just get that feeling of happiness and joy from experiencing it. And Astrobot really is something like that. Despite how cringy that might sound, it really is. Like, I almost dare anybody with any kind of interest in video games to play Astrobot and not smile. And I know all of this sounds really cringy, but I'm serious. This is literally like buying a feeling that just not many things the older you get can replicate. There's not much out there that can generate that childhood excitement and feeling, and Astrobot does. It's contagious. I love it for a multitude of reasons. Its ability to just drop this incredible mechanic in one level and then never touch it again. And the music. Oh my god, the music is sensational. Astrobot's Playroom had some fantastic catchy songs with GPU and SSD, but Astrobot itself just brings it up to another level. And the way that they use these PlayStation themed levels and rescored their main themes with an Astrobot spin on it is just majestic. It really is. The game made me realize that I've got way more nostalgia for PlayStation than I thought. Again, without spoilers, the Uncharted theme level just I didn't realize how much of an attachment I had for that franchise till I played this game. It's absolutely a celebration of PlayStation, but it also highlights the fact that many of the IPs this game is celebrating, they're kind of just dormant now and untouched. But I firmly believe too that even without the nostalgia sprinkled throughout Astrobot, it's just a fantastic platformer that would stand on its own 2 feet regardless of the nostalgia that's in play here. I mentioned before that next gen feeling, and everyone thinks of next gen as flashy, fancy, photorealistic graphics. And don't get me wrong, Astrobot is a real looker. The way the colours pop on an OLED telly, the way particles fly out, or the interactive nature of every item in the sandbox, whether you're punching it, spinning it, jumping on it, lasering it, whatever. But 4 years into this console generation, it still feels like we're getting the same kind of games that came with a PS4 or an Xbox One. Astrobot really does feel like something different, something unique, and something that's fresh. It feels next gen in what it does with a DualSense controller. The haptic feedback of running on sand versus running on metal, and how it's soft on sand and clickety clackety on metal. How the DualSense pumps out noise depending on what you're doing. Again, I'm trying to not be too specific because I really don't want to take away from anyone else's experience here. But from the resistance of pulling on something, the feedback of destroying layers of an items or pixels on an enemy, it just feels different to everything else you play. And there's a rarity of that in video games now. It really is. Maybe I'll do a spoiler video talking about some of my favourite levels or favourite moments because it just has so much that I do want to dive into. But it just gives you that experimental type feeling of trying to find all the bots in a level and how to interact with an item. And the truth is that you're always rewarded with whatever you do. Even if you go to somewhere that doesn't have a bot to rescue or a puzzle piece to pick up, you're still given coins. I understand for many people that 60 quid for 10 to 12 hours of a story or campaign and then 15 hours for completionists seems like a stretch and maybe it's not value for money. But the one thing that I would say is that the 10 to 12 hours of this game is just pure, unfiltered joy and a pleasure to play. There's no filler, it's just there, and the whole time you really just feel like you're grinning. And then you look at the care that they took with all the different IPs that they added into the game, and the way they make them feel authentic and respected. It's just absolutely wonderful. Even as someone who isn't the biggest platformer, and yet Mario Galaxy is one of my favourite games of all times. This one is right up there with that. It really does feel special. And I firmly believe that Astrobot is a reason to own a PS5 in the same way that a Marvel Spider-Man 2 or a Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is. On the flip side of the conversation, though, in terms of being next gen, is Space Marine 2, because it feels like a peak Xbox 360 era game, but in all the best ways possible. With the cost and production of video games now, this kind of game is so rare. And when I say this, what I mean is that a game that launches with a campaign, a co-op mode, and PvE. Like, if you think about it over the last couple of years, the only games that really offer this at launch are Call of Duty, a Gears of War, and even Halo Infinite couldn't provide that at launch. For me, this right here, Space Marine 2, should be the live service model going forward. You make a game that's fantastic first, that gives you this backbone, this foundation that, if it resonates, you can build on it. Live service games that aim for the stars are dumb because most people are already invested in one, and to develop a model that requires a player's time all the time, it simply doesn't work when you've already got a market full of them. Space Marine 2, it does work because it's here's this complete full offering at launch that will keep you interested for 30 hours to 50 hours, and then once you are done, you can come back. But that drop off isn't going to kill the game because at launch it's content complete and its success doesn't rely on a consistent player base to stay throughout the year. Anyway, that's a topic for a whole other video, but let's talk about why I'm really vibing with Space Marine 2. I'm about to dive right into this 40k universe because holy shit, is this game incredible. I've dabbled in Warhammer games. The first Space Marine actually was my introduction to Warhammer, but I've played Darktide, a little bit of Boltgun, and I've really enjoyed them. But for this, I just cannot fathom how Warhammer 40k fans are feeling playing this game. I really can't. The excitement and feeling that this game's authentic recreation is going to give them, I just can't fathom it. I'm slowly learning day by day about 40k, and this world is it's fucking off its head, mate. That's all I can say in all the best ways possible. But I really like Space Marine 2 because it's just so confident in what it wants to be. The campaign, it runs for 8 to 10 hours, but it's a great 8 to 10 hours. There's no padding in it, it's just great thrills the entire time, and that final hour is just bombastic, like hands on your head moments that even as someone outside on the 40k universe, really appreciate still. Even with that minimal knowledge, I was like, this is fucking sick. The word spectacle is thrown out a lot, whether that comes to movies or video games, but 40k Space Marine 2 is absolutely a spectacle. The way you will look into the far distance and see all the Tyranids just moving towards this objective, and you think, oh, cool, nice set dressing, cool, it really adds to that immersion. And all of a sudden, they come towards you, and then they are on screen as real, tangible enemies, and you're just like, wow. Like, that really is fantastic. And it consistently impresses, whether it's the first time that you experience it or it's the 100th time in the co op mode. I mentioned the whole Xbox 360 game feeling before, but I really do mean that in the most complimentary way possible. There's a breadth of experience here that aren't designed to keep you playing forever, but they are designed to keep you engaged and having fun. Fun is at the heart of this game in a very different way to Astrobot, slashing waves with Tyranids or the gunfights with the heretics. If you love sci-fi worlds, I really do think that this is a must play for the immersion and the authenticity and how bonkers this 40k universe is. Look, it's not a perfect game. The game's core systems are actually quite repetitive, there's no doubt about it. But that's also helped that the campaign is just you play as Titus, there's no skill trees, progression, a solid 8 to 10 hour experience that keeps things moving at a nice pace. But then you move over to the co op mode where you've got 6 different classes that all play relatively different and associate around a certain playstyle. The co-op has loot rarities, though not the annoying kind of shoehorn kind. And in those classes that I've mentioned, you got levels to go up and then actual skill trees to invest in and make choices to define how you want your character to play. And then there's of course the PvP that I mentioned that has its own leveling system. There's also customization, which this is where it just all feels so refreshing. If this game was built as a live service first, all these armor parts and color variants, you can just see it. 20 quid for this armor set, 15 quid for this color variant, all around trying to get in as much money as possible. But that's not the case here. Almost everything on day one is completely free with the game. You just play the game and you unlock it through playing it. There's one cosmetic pack at launch that you can buy for a little bit more extra money, which really is just there for the die-hard dedicated those who want to look the best Space Marine possible. Completely optional. And I just really vibe with this because I'm so tired of free-to-play monetization models that give you bare bones progression because the progression becomes a battle pass or just buying the best skins in the store. This feels like an old school offering in all the best ways. A fulfilling campaign that isn't afraid to get nuts and delivers a great 8 hours. A PvE mode that evolves on the campaign's mechanics but fleshes it out for replayability. And then PvP that isn't just shoehorned in but feels akin to an Uncharted PvP or a Last of Us or a Mass Effect. All with minimal interference of microtransactions. Just one pass for those who really want to dial up their Space Marine fashion. Not to mention, this game has incredible sound design, a really fantastic score, and just outstanding visual presentation, whether that's when you're in the missions themselves or the cutscenes that are on hand throughout the various missions. And of course, you gotta mention the parry. Any great parry in a video game deserves a mention, and they've got one here. These two games, they just feel like a real breath of fresh air. They really do. You know, you look at Sony in how up and down last week was with Concord going offline the same day as Astrobot releases. You look at something like Suicide Squad, which was designed inherently as a live service game, and whether that could have benefited from being like Space Marine rather than being developed as a live service title first. It's just an authentic, single player campaign that maybe could have had a co op mode with friends after launch. Like, I really do believe that these two video games should serve as a lesson to the wider video game industry in just being authentic and knowing what you want to be in the video game space, but also just a prime focus on being a terrific video game first, and you can evolve to something more later on. And I say all this as what I would probably consider as a live service enjoyer. I've played thousands of hours of Destiny. I've played lots of Final Fantasy XIV. Played hundreds of hours of Marvel's Avengers. I've played The Division 2. I've played Diablo 4. I play a lot of these games, but most people now have dipped their toes into something already. So if you're building a game that relies on a consistent player base for years, just isn't there now unless you're a GTA or a Fortnite. Like I say, in a year of weirdness for video games, these two are the foundation of what video games should be. At least to me. But yeah, let me know, like, what do you think? Are video games back? I'm only joking. We've had some terrific ones this year, but yeah, have you picked up either of Astrobot or Space Marine or both of them? If you have, what do you think about them? Or have I convinced you to pick any of them up? Honestly, just let me know in the comments. I'd actually really love to hear from you about these. I'm always positive here, but I never really gush in the way that I have here, so please excuse me. But if you did enjoy hearing me, dropping a like on the video, it'd be really appreciated. And like I say, I'm just here to talk about the things that I'm really passionate about or that I find very interesting when it comes to video games. So if you're after more of that, consider subscribing. I'd love for you to stick around. Other than that, all my socials are linked in the description down below. So for more awful opinions, you can get at me down there. Otherwise, I hope you have a terrific day. Look after yourself, and I'll catch you in the next one.